The great room was very quiet. It was the kind of quiet that comes from power, not from peace. Light came through the ceiling, which was made of something like crystal, and fell on the many people in the room. They were not all the same. Some had smooth skin, some had shells, some had many eyes. They wore fine clothes of soft cloth and shiny material. They were all looking at the main door dot in the center of the room. On a high seat sat Legate Kalen. He had 4 dark eyes and long, thin fingers that rested on his knees. He felt good. Today would be easy. His people, the celestial hegemony, had found a new world not long ago. A world called Earth. The humans there were clever, but they fought among themselves. Their technology was strong but simple. They were like children, Kalen thought. Loud, busy children. The plan was simple. Show them the greatness of the hegemony. Show them the peace and the order. They would be grateful to join. They would sign the papers and become a protectorate. It was how things were done. It was clean. The Terran delegation is here, a soft voice said. It was one of Kellen's aides. Good, Kalen said. Let us welcome them to a brighter future. The big doors opened without a sound. Kalen expected to see old men in stiff coats, or soft scientists with nervous smiles. Maybe a military officer with a chest full of shiny medals. 3 people walked in. They were not what he expected. They wore plain clothes, dark gray jackets and pants. No medals, no decorations. They moved together, but not like a parade. They moved like parts of a machine. They did not look at the beautiful room. They looked at the people. They looked at the doors. They looked at the guards. A woman was in front. Her hair was dark and tied back. Her face showed nothing. Her name was Yuna. The 2 men with her were just as still. One was called Jun. The other was Min. Their eyes were not wide with wonder. Their eyes were calm and empty. It was the emptiness that made Kellen's own guard shift his weight. The 3 humans stopped in front of the high seat. They did not bow. Legate Kalen, the woman, Yuna, said. Her voice was flat. It did not ask for permission to speak. It just spoke. Welcome, representatives of Earth, Kalen said. He spread his hands in a warm gesture. We are pleased you have come so far to join our community. The celestial hegemony offers you safety. We offer you progress. In return, we ask for your cooperation and a share of your resources. It is a fair exchange for the peace we provide. Yuna did not smile. She took a small, plain tablet from her pocket. We have read your protectorate charter. She looked at the tablet, not at him. Article 7, the part about giving up our weapons. Earth does not agree. A soft sound went through the room. A sound of surprise. No one disagreed at this stage. Kalen kept his smile, but it felt tighter. It is a normal rule. For the safety of everyone. There is no war here. You will not need weapons. The man on Yuna's left, Min, spoke. His voice was quiet, but it cut through the room. Our safety is our job, not yours. Kalen let his smile fade a little. He needed to teach them. You have a small view of things. Your little fights on your little world are over. We have a greater peace here. You must learn to be part of it. Yuna looked up from the tablet. She looked right at Kalen. Her eyes were like stone. Peace is what you have when the other guy is dead. We know that idea very well. She put the tablet away. We are not joining you. And if any hegemony ship comes into our space, we will see it as an attack. Now the room was loud. People were talking, their voices sharp with shock. How could they say this? How could they be so rude? Kalen stood up. He was very tall. He looked down at the 3 humans. You speak of attacks, you? He could not hide his disbelief. Your people just learned to travel between stars. You threaten the celestial hegemony? With what? The other man, Jun, had been silent. He had been looking around the room. His eyes had moved over the beautiful pillars. They had rested on the two big guards by the door, who wore heavy armor. He looked at the way the light fell. Now he looked at Kalen. His face was calm. "We are not threatening you," Jun said. His words were slow and clear. "We are telling you the rules. If you come into our house, we will fight. Sir." The word sir did not sound respectful. It sounded like a warning. Kalen stared at them. The noise in the room died down. He looked past their plain clothes. He looked at their hands. They were still ready. He looked at their eyes again. He saw no fear of him. He saw no greed for his things. He saw no wish to impress him. He saw nothing. Or rather, he saw a space waiting to be filled. He had seen that look before, long ago, in the eyes of a deep space predator that knew only hunger. A cold feeling touched Kellen's heart. These were not leaders. These were not speakers. What were they? "What are you?" Kalen asked. His voice was quieter now. Yuna's mouth moved. It was not a smile. It was a thin line of something else. "We are the message," she said. "We are leaving now." They turned. All three turned at the same time. They walked back toward the big doors. No one stopped them. The guards looked at Kalen, waiting for an order. Kalen said nothing. He watched them go. The doors closed behind them. The room was silent again, but this was a different quiet. This was the quiet of a hole in the world, where the wind blows through and you do not know what comes next. Kalen slowly sat back down. His aide leaned close. "Shall the first send the guards after them, Legate? To teach them a lesson?" Kalen looked at the door where the humans had left. He saw the faces of the three, the empty eyes, the calm voices. "No," Kalen said finally. His voice was tired. "No, do not touch them." He had a terrible new thought. These three had walked into the heart of his power and had not been afraid. They had said no. They had given him a rule. They said they were the message. If they were the message, Kalen did not want to meet the ones who wrote it. The big hegemony ship hung in space above the green and blue world. It was called New Desha. It was a pretty place, with wide farms and small towns. Humans lived there. It was a new colony, just outside the space Earth called its own. On the bridge of the hegemony ship, the Sunshaper, Prelate Vorain, looked at the planet below. He was not a bad man. He believed in order. The humans had been rude. They had said no to the legate himself. This was not how things were done. So the hegemony would give a lesson. A small, clean lesson. They would not destroy. They would just show who was in charge. They would take this little colony without a fight, and Earth would learn to be polite. "Open a channel to the main settlement," Vorain said. A light blinked. "Channel open." Vorain spoke, his voice calm and strong. It went to every speaker on the planet. "People of New Desha, this is Prelate Vorain of the Celestial Hegemony. By order of the Conclave, this world is now under our protection. You will stand down your defenses. You will surrender administrative control. Do this peacefully. Resistance is not logical. You have 1 hour." He leaned back. He expected panic. He expected calls for help to Earth. He expected maybe a brave but foolish little ship to fly up and shout. The speaker crackled. A voice came back. It was a man's voice. It sounded tired. It sounded almost bored. "This is Sergeant Juan of the United Earth Marine Corps' 3rd Rapid Response. You are in a place you should not be. Go away. over. VORN blinked. A sergeant? A single soldier was talking to a dreadnought? He looked at his officers. Some of them smiled. This was funny. It was sad and funny. Their defiance is charming, VORN said. But we must be clear. Launch a single Fury interceptor. Have it make a low pass over their main communications tower. A show of presence. In the farm below, Sergeant Juan sat in a small, dug-out hole in the ground. It was a foxhole. He had a simple radio in his hand. He watched a screen. He saw the big ship above. He saw a small dot leave the big ship. It was coming down. Juan sighed. He pressed a button on the radio. Jesu, they sent one. Just one. 5 kilometers away, in a hole that was covered with dirt and grass, Corporal Jesu sat at a control panel. In front of her was not a normal gun. It was a long, heavy barrel pointed at the sky. It was called a mass driver. It used magnets to throw a piece of metal very, very fast. She looked at her screen. She saw the dot too. Fireworks, Sergeant? Jesu asked over the radio. Her voice was calm. Just one bang, please. Don't want to scare them too much. Juan said. Jesu pressed a button. There was no beam of light. There was no trail of fire. There was a loud crack that shook the ground for a second. It was the sound of air being pushed too fast up in the sky. The Fury interceptor stopped being a ship. It became a cloud of tiny, shining pieces. The pieces spread out and then faded away. On the bridge of the Sunshaper, the smile left Vorin's face. The officers were not smiling anymore. What was that? One officer asked. No energy signature. A projectile? Vorin felt a tickle of worry. They have a ground-based defense. Scramble all Fury squadrons. Find that weapon and destroy it. 16 more Fury ships shot out of the big ship. They screamed down into the sky over New Desha. They spread out, looking for the thing that killed their friend. On the ground, Juan stopped sounding bored. Jesu, pack up and move. Min, Yuna, they are coming. Playtime. In a rocky canyon, Min stood up. He was wearing a suit. It was not pretty. It was thick metal and wires. It made him look big and heavy. On his back, there were small jets. He looked up at the sky. He saw the ships coming. Yuna, you take the ones from the east. I'll take the west, Min said into his helmet. Copy, a woman's voice answered. From another part of the forest, Yuna stood up. She wore the same kind of suit. She held a long, heavy rifle. The hegemony pilots flew in clean, straight lines. They were looking for a big gun. They did not see the 2 humans on the ground. They did not look for soldiers. Min jumped. The jets on his back fired with a short roar. He flew up, not high, but onto the top of a tall rock. A Fury ship flew past him, its engines loud. Min raised his rifle. He did not aim at the ship. He aimed ahead of it. He fired. The gun did not make a laser. It shot a solid piece of metal. It hit the front window of the Fury. The window broke. The ship spun and crashed into the side of a mountain. Yuna did not jump. She ran. Her suit made her run fast, like a large animal. She came to an open field. 2 Fury ships turned toward her. They shot bright lasers at the ground. The dirt exploded near her feet. Yuna stopped running. She knelt down. She put her rifle to her shoulder. She was very still. She fired once. The first Fury ship jerked and then fell from the sky, smoke coming from its engine. The second ship came closer, its guns firing. Yuna rolled to the side. The lasers burned the ground where she had been. She came up on one knee and fired again. The second ship made a strange sound and crashed. It was not a battle. It was a hunt. The Fury pilots were trained for space fights, for shooting at other ships from far away. They were not trained for this, for enemies who hid in rocks, for enemies who jumped onto high places, for enemies who shot solid metal that went right through their ships. That one Fury pilot flew low over a river. He thought he was safe. From under the water, a rocket came up. It hit his ship's belly. He did not have time to scream. Another pilot saw a human on a hill. He flew straight at it, shooting. The human, Min, stood there. At the last second, Min jumped. His jets fired. He went up over the ship. As he went over, he dropped something small. It landed on the ship's wing. It was a bomb. It blew a hole in the wing. The ship went down. In 12 minutes, it was over. All 16 Fury ships were gone. The sky was quiet again, but now it was filled with smoke and the smell of burning. On the Sunshaper, Prelate Vioran was pale. His hands were shaking. He had lost 17 ships. To what? To a few soldiers on the ground? This was impossible. Charge the primary disruptor, Vioran said, his voice rough. Target their main settlement. We will show them the cost of this. This madness. The big ship started to hum. A glow began in its middle. It was getting ready to fire a weapon that could crack the ground open from miles. Down in his foxhole, Sergeant Juan watched his screen. He saw the energy build up on the big ship. Well, they didn't like the lesson. He pressed his radio. John, they're bringing out the big one. We need to finish class. Back on Earth, in a dark room, June watched everything on a screen. He saw the Sunshaper charging its weapon. He nodded. Permission granted, Sergeant. Send the final note. Juan smiled a thin smile. Jisoo, you moved? All moved and set, Sergeant. Jisoo's voice came back. Then send it. On the moon of New Thesha, a small door opened in the gray rock. A machine pushed a long, heavy metal rod out into space. The rod was pointed at the Sunshaper. The machine hummed. There was a flash of light at its base. The rod shot forward. It moved faster than anything the hegemony had ever seen. On the bridge of the Sunshaper, an alarm screamed. Massive projectile incoming? Speed is unbelievable. An officer yelled. Shields. Full power. Vioran shouted. The shield around the big ship glowed bright blue. The metal rod hit it. The shield flashed once, like a bubble popping, and then it was gone. The rod kept going. It hit the middle of the Sunshaper. It went through the thick armor like it was paper. It went through the engine room. It went through the crew decks. It went out the other side. The humming stopped. The glow died. The Sunshaper was dead. A clean hole went straight through it. Lights flickered and went out. It was just a big, dark metal thing in space now. On the ground, Juan stood up from his foxhole. He brushed dirt off his pants. He looked at the sky. He could see the dead ship, a dark spot against the stars. Lesson over, he said to himself. He picked up his radio. All units, fall back. Good work. Far away, on another hegemony ship that was watching, Legate Kalen saw the whole thing on a screen. He saw his mighty dreadnought killed by a piece of metal thrown from a moon. He saw the little ships shot down by soldiers in ugly suits. He felt cold. He finally understood the mistake. They had thought Earth would send an army. They would send ships to fight ships. But Earth did not do that. Earth sent something else. They sent people like Juan and Jisoo and Min and Yuna. People who saw a problem and broke it. People who did not fight fair. People for whom this was just a job. Kalen looked at the quiet planet below. He looked at the dead Sunshaper. The disbelief in his heart was turning into a hard, cold fear. The big room on the hegemony world was full of light and worry. Important people from many planets were there. Their images flickered in the air like ghosts. They were all talking at once. In the middle of it all was Legate Kalen. He felt tired. The news from New Vesha was like a bad dream that would not end. We must destroy their world. One of the images shouted. It was an admiral, his face hard. We have planet breaker missiles. We can fire from very far away. They will never see us coming. And then what? Another voice asked. This was a strategist, her eyes narrow. If we destroy their home, do you think the rest will just give up? Look at the pictures. They do not fight like us. They will hide. They will come to our worlds. They will do to our cities what they did to our ships. Do you want that? The room got loud again. Everyone was afraid. They had seen the recordings. They saw the human called Min jump onto a ship. They saw Yuna shoot a pilot who was trying to escape. It was not war. It was something worse. It was like cleaning a drain. Kalen held up his hand. The room got quiet. Enough, he said. His voice was flat. We cannot fight them like a normal enemy. They are not a normal enemy. We need to think differently. But thinking differently was hard. The hegemony had been the strongest for 1,000 years. They won by having bigger ships and better technology. They talked first, and if that did not work, they showed their power. They had never met someone who skipped the talking and the showing, and just started breaking things. Meanwhile, on Earth, in a room cut into a mountain, the humans were also having a meeting. The room was not pretty. It had gray walls and many screens. Yuna, John, and Min were there. With them was a young woman named Hana. She was small and quiet, and she loved maps. Hana pointed at a big screen that showed the stars. The hegemony is big, she said, but it is like a tree. It has a strong center. She touched the screen. 12 stars glowed brighter. These are their core worlds, rich, important. Then she pointed at lines connecting the stars. They move their things through these paths. Their whole way of living depends on things moving from one place to another. They think war is about taking territory. They do not understand that war is about breaking the other guy's will to fight. John looked at the map. He was leaning on a table. They are gathering their ships, he said. They think we will attack their fleet or defend our own space. They are waiting for a big battle. Min made a short sound, almost a laugh. A big battle would be stupid. They have more ships. Right, John said. So we do not give them a big battle. He reached out and touched a star on the screen. It was not one of the big, bright ones. It was a smaller star, out on one of the lines. The name came up, L473 system. What is here? Hannah smiled a little. She pressed some buttons. Pictures came up. Beautiful green fields. Full storehouses. The hegemony calls it the granary of the frontier. It grows food for 20 other worlds. It is very important. But it is not a military place. They only have a few guard ships there. They think it is safe because it is behind their big fleets. Yuna crossed her arms. If we attack it, their whole fleet will come running to protect it. That is the point, John said. We do not want to fight their fleet. We want them to chase us. We make them run to where we are, not where they want to be. We pick a place that hurts them to lose. The plan was simple, and that is why it would work. The hegemony expected something grand. The humans planned something mean. The hegemony fleets gathered at the places they thought the humans would come. They waited in neat lines, their big guns ready. They waited for a week. Nothing happened. Space was empty and quiet. The admirals started to feel foolish. During that quiet week, a single human ship slipped through the dark. It was the UEC Watchful. It was not a warship. It was a small cruiser, made quiet and hard to see. It did not go toward the hegemony fleets. It went the other way. It went toward the L473 system. Inside the Watchful, the lights were dim. Jun, Min, Yuna, and Sergeant Wan were there. With them were 40 other men and women. They were checking their weapons. They were not talking much. A young soldier was cleaning his gun over and over. Another was sleeping. They looked calm. This was normal for them. The ship came out of its jump near the L473 system. The granary world was a green jewel below. Its moon was a gray, dead rock. That was the target. 30 seconds to drop, a voice said over the ship's speaker. The soldiers stood up. They walked to the drop pods. These were like metal eggs. Jun got into one. Min got into another. Yuna nodded to Juan and got into hers. The doors closed with a hiss. The pods shot out of the Watchful. They fell toward the gray moon. They did not have engines to slow down. They fell fast and hard. They hit the moon's surface like meteorites, kicking up dust. The doors blew open. The soldiers came out, their guns ready. The moon base was a smooth silver dome a kilometer away. It had a tall communication tower. The 100 hegemony guards at the base were not real soldiers. They were security. They wore nice uniforms. They stood at doors. They had never been shot at. When the alarms went off, they did not know what to do. They ran to the windows and saw black shapes running toward them over the gray dust. The shapes did not run in a straight line. They zigzagged. They were very fast. The guards fired their energy weapons. Bright bolts lit up the dark. They missed. The black shapes kept coming. Shung's team reached a side door. Min put a small packet of explosives on the door lock. He turned away. There was a flash and a bang. The door fell inward. The humans went in. Inside, the halls were white and clean. A hegemony guard turned the corner, his weapon raised. He saw Jun. His eyes were wide with surprise. Jun shot him twice. The guard fell. Jun stepped over him and kept moving. It was not a fight. It was a clearing. The humans moved in small groups. They checked every room. If a door was locked, they blew it open. If someone pointed a weapon, they shot them. They did not shout. They used hand signals. They were like a machine made of people. Yuna's team found the main control room. 2 technicians were there, their long fingers on the screens. They turned when the door blew open. They put their hands up. Their bodies were shaking. "Do not kill us," one of them said, his voice high with fear. "Move," Yuna said. She pointed her gun at the corner. The 2 technicians scrambled to the corner and sat down, their hands on their heads. Yuna went to the main console. She plugged a small device into it. "Hannah, I am in." Starting the upload. Back on Earth, Hannah sat at her console. "I see it. Uploading now." She pressed a key. On the moon, and from the Watchful in orbit, a signal went out. It was the strongest signal they could make. It went on every channel. Every news screen on every hegemony world. Every military communication. Every personal device. The signal was not words. It was pictures. First, the pictures from New Desha. The Fury ships blowing up. The soldier jumping. The dreadnought with a hole in it. Then new pictures. From the moon base. The clean halls. The guards falling. The humans moving like ghosts through the white rooms. The final picture was from a security camera. It showed Jun. He looked right into the camera. His face was calm. He spoke 5 words. "You are not safe anywhere." The words were translated into every hegemony language. They played over and over. On the hegemony core worlds, people stopped in the streets. They looked at the public screens. They saw the violence. They heard the words. In their homes, families watched. The feeling of safety, the feeling that the hegemony was too big to be hurt, it cracked like glass dot in the war room. Legate Kalen saw the message. He saw the fear on the faces of the other leaders. Their great fleets were useless. The enemy was not out there. The enemy was already inside, showing everyone that their homes could be touched. The grand strategy was over. The humans had not fought a battle. They had planted a seed. The seed was fear. And in the quiet, rich worlds of the celestial hegemony, that seed began to grow. The Festival of Unified Light was the biggest party of the year on Ixon Prime. The whole world was shining. Lights of every color floated in the air. Music came from everywhere. People from many species filled the streets, laughing and dancing. It was a show of peace and happiness. It was a show of strength. High above the city was the conclave spire. It was a tall, thin needle of metal and glass. Inside, the most important people in the celestial hegemony stood on a wide balcony. They looked down at the party below. Legate Kalen was there. He tried to smile. He tried to feel the peace. But he could not forget the words. You are not safe anywhere. He looked at the security. It was the best in the galaxy. A clear energy shield covered the whole spire. It could stop any missile. A full legion of Viron guardians stood in the halls. They were big, with thick armor and powerful guns. Drone cameras flew everywhere, watching every face. The air itself was scanned for weapons, for explosives, for any sign of danger. The scanners were set to look for the biology of known enemy species. It was a perfect wall. No one could get in. Kalen told himself this was the right move. The conclave had to be seen here. They had to show the people that they were not afraid. They were still in charge. The humans were far away, on the edge of known space. They could not touch this place. Far from the lights and music. On a dirty space station that smelled of oil and old food, the humans were getting ready. They were in a small room with stained walls. Jun was looking at a screen that showed the festival on Ixion Prime. Yuna was checking the parts of her rifle. Min was sharpening a knife. A young woman, Hana, was typing on a computer. Your security is very good, Hana said. She did not sound worried. She sounded like she was reading a list of ingredients. The shield stops everything. The guards are many. The scanners check for DNA, for weapons, for known threats. Jun did not look away from the screen. What do the scanners look for? They look for known enemy biology. They look for the shape of our bombs. They look for energy from our guns. And what do they see when they look at us? Jun asked. Hana smiled a little. They see a problem. Our biology is not in their records. We are new. To their scanners, a human looks like. The voice you selected does not support this language. Please click the upper right corner to switch to another voice. A fuzzy mammal. A background noise. Just another strange animal in a galaxy full of strange animals. They ignore it because they have never had a reason not to. Yuna put her rifle together. It made a soft click. So we are ghosts. To their machines, yes, Hana said. You will walk right past them. The plan was not to attack. It was to visit. They would go to the party. The next day, a garbage ship landed on Ixion Prime. It was an old, rusty ship that carried waste from the space stations. It smelled bad. No one looked at it twice. From the ship's cargo hold, 3 people walked out. They wore the gray overalls of maintenance workers. They carried toolboxes. They were Jun, Yuna, and Min. Their army suits were folded very small inside the toolboxes. Their weapons were in pieces hidden among tools. They walked into the bright, clean city. The festival was loud around them. Aliens of all shapes bumped into them. Music pumped through the air. No alarm sounded. The drone cameras flew over their heads. The scanners in the air touched them and moved on. Fuzzy mammals. Background noise. They came to a service entrance at the bottom of the conclave spire. It was a plain metal door. A hegemony worker in a uniform was there, checking a list on a tablet. You. Maintenance. You are late. The worker said. Not looking up, Chun walked up to him. Sorry, the traffic from the festival. The worker finally looked up. He saw Chun's calm face. He saw Yuna and Min standing behind him. He opened his mouth to ask a question, but he never asked it. Min's hand came up fast. There was a small puff of air. A tiny dart stuck in the worker's neck. His eyes rolled up, and he fell. Yuna caught him and dragged him into a dark corner. They went through the door. Inside, it was all pipes and wires and humming machines. The air was hot. They opened their toolboxes. They took out the pieces of their suits and put them on. The gray overalls went over the suits. They put the pieces of their rifles together. It took less than a minute. Now they looked like maintenance workers in bulky clothes. They started walking up the service stairs. The stairs went up the inside of the spire, next to the beautiful elevators that the important people used. On the 5th level, 2 Viran guardians stood by a door. They were huge, their armor reflecting the light. They saw the 3 workers. Halt! This area is restricted. One guardian said, his voice deep. Chun kept walking. We have a work order. Air filter problem on level 6. The guardian stepped in front of him. Let me see the order. Chun reached into his pocket. He did not pull out paper. He pulled out a small, flat device. He pressed it against the guardian's chest. There was a bright blue flash and a crackle. The guardian shook and fell down, his armor smoking. The second guardian raised his gun. Yuna was already moving. She jumped, using the wall to push off. She landed behind the guardian. Her arm went around his neck. There was a sharp twist. The guardian went limp. They dragged the 2 bodies into a closet. They kept walking up. They did this 2 more times. They were quiet and fast. They did not shoot unless they had to. When they did shoot, they used small, silent weapons that fired solid rounds. They did not want the noise of energy weapons. They reached the top. The door to the grand balcony was ahead. They could hear the music from outside. They could hear the voices of the conclave members. Chun looked at Yuna and Min. He nodded. They took off their gray overalls. Underneath, they wore their simple, dark army suits. They checked their rifles one last time. Chun pushed the door open. They walked out onto the balcony. The night air was cool. The sky was full of floating lights. Below, the city was a sea of color and joy. The members of the conclave stood with their backs to the door, watching the show. One aide turned around. He saw the 3 humans. His mouth fell open. He tried to speak, but no sound came out. Legate Kalen felt something was wrong. He turned. He saw Jun, Yuna, and Min. They were just standing there. Their rifles were not pointed. They were just held ready. For a second, Kellen's mind refused to understand. It was impossible. They were here, in the heart of his world, on his balcony, surrounded by his guards. But his guards were gone. The other conclave members turned. There were gasps, cries of fear. Some tried to run to the sides, but Yuna and Min moved to block the exits. They did not say anything. They just stood there. Kalen felt cold. He felt a strange kind of respect mixed with his terror. They had done it. They had walked through the best security in the galaxy like it was nothing. Why? Kalen asked. His voice was a whisper. Why come here? You could have killed us all from orbit. Jun took a small step forward. He held up a tiny data chip. We are not here to kill you, Legate. We are here to give you a choice. He tossed the chip. It landed at Kellen's feet. That is a ceasefire agreement. The terms are simple. You leave our space. You recognize our borders. You go home. And the killing stops. An admiral, his face purple with anger, shouted, You dare to give us terms here? In our own home? We will drown your world in fire. Yuna's rifle came up so fast, it was a blur. The red dot from her sight appeared right in the middle of the admiral's forehead. Talk more, and you will be the first to die tonight, she said. Her voice was quiet, but it cut through the music. Your choice. The admiral shut his mouth. He was shaking. Kalen bent down slowly. He picked up the chip. His hands were not steady. He put the chip into a reader on the balcony's railing. The terms came up on a small screen. They were clear. They were hard. But they were not impossible. Earth just wanted to be left alone. He looked at Jun. And if we refuse? From the shadows by the door, Min spoke. Then we finish clearing this room. And then we go to the next room. And the next, sir. Kalen believed him. He looked at their eyes. There was no anger. There was no hate. There was just a job, waiting to be finished. He looked at the faces of the conclave. He saw pure fear. The festival lights played over their faces, making them look like painted ghosts. He had a choice. He could be brave and die, and everyone on the balcony would die with him. And then the humans would probably go down into the city. Or he could be smart and live. Kalen took a deep breath. He looked at the screen. He pressed the button. It said, Accept. A wise choice, John said. He lowered his hand. Yuna lowered her rifle. The red dot vanished from the admiral's head. Without another word, the three humans turned. They walked back through the door they came from. They left the conclave standing in silence on the balcony. The happy music from the festival below sounding like a cruel joke. The bloody ceasefire had begun. A year had passed. A year of quiet. A year without killing. In the space between Earth and the hegemony, there were no more fights. The treaty, signed on that terrible night on Ixon Prime, was holding. Legate Kalen stood on the viewing deck of a hegemony shuttle. It was approaching a human space station. The station was not beautiful. It was a blocky, gray thing, built for work. This was where the final papers would be signed. The Treaty of Mutual Non-Interference. It was a fancy name for leave each other alone. Kalen was not the same man. He looked older. His 4 eyes had seen too much. He was dressed in simple robes, not his grand uniform. His guards, 2V Ran, were nervous. Their hands stayed close to their weapons. Kalen told them to wait by the shuttle door. He would go alone. He walked down the corridor of the human station. The walls were plain metal. The lights were bright and white. It was clean, but it felt empty. He was taken to a small room with a large window that looked out at the stars. Earth was a blue and white ball in the distance. 2 people were waiting for him. He knew them. Yuna and Jun. They were not in their army suits. They wore simple black clothes, like uniforms, but without any marks. They looked ordinary, like workers after a long shift. They nodded to him. It was not a friendly nod. It was an acknowledgement. Legate Kalen, Jun said. The documents are ready. Kalen walked to the table. There were papers and a data slate. He picked up a pen. It felt heavy. My government has approved everything. The buffer zones, the trade rules, the recognition of your sovereignty. He said the words, but they tasted strange. The attacks have stopped. Your people have pulled back. We follow orders, Una said. Her voice was flat, as always. Kalen signed his name on the papers. He pressed his thumb to the slate. It glowed, accepting his biometric signature. It was done. The war that was not a war was officially over. He put the pen down. He did not feel relief. He felt a deep tiredness. He looked at the two humans. He had to ask. The question had been burning inside him for a year. We thought you were primitive, Kalen said. He was not talking to the diplomats. He was talking to the soldiers. We saw your history. So much fighting. So much anger. We thought you were just violent animals. We were wrong. John looked at him. He did not smile. Violence is a feeling. It is hot. It is anger or hate or fear. He paused. What you saw was not that. Then what was it? Kalen asked. He needed to understand. He needed to take this answer back home to make sense of the nightmare. Una answered. It was a job. A very old job. Our people have been practicing it for a long, long time. You built your civilization on beautiful things. On music and art and talking. We built ours on a simple idea. If something is trying to hurt you, you break it before it breaks you. You spent your history learning how to build. We spent a big part of ours learning how to break. We just got very, very good at it. Kalen stared out the window at Earth. It looked peaceful from here. Quiet. So you are not warriors? You are not heroes? John made a soft sound. Warriors fight for glory, for honor. Heroes do things because they are right. We are not those things. He tapped the table with one finger. We are mechanics. The problem was a threat. We applied the correct force to remove the threat. That is all. It was the most frightening thing Kalen had ever heard. They were not monsters. They were not demons. They were technicians, specialists in applied force. The galaxy had been having a polite argument, and Earth had sent experts whose only argument was a hammer, and they had used it with perfect, calm precision. So what happens now? Kalen asked. You have your peace. Will you change? Will you join the rest of us? Will you share your music? Your stories? For the first time, Una's face changed. A real expression. It was not a smile, but it was close. It was the look of someone thinking about a hard task. Maybe, one day. But first, we have to learn how to stand down. It takes a lot of work to be that ready. To be that sharp. It will take a different kind of work to learn how not to be. She reached down and picked up a small, old-fashioned book from the table. It was made of paper. She held it out to Kalen. What is this? He asked, taking it. It is a book from our history. A very old one. It is called The Art of War, June said. Do not read it as a manual. Read it as a warning. Read it to understand the mind that built the tool you met. Kalen looked at the cover. The paper felt strange in his hands. And the ones like you? The ones who came to our worlds? They are going home, Una said. Some will go back to farms. Some will fix machines. Some will teach. The suits will be cleaned and put away. She met his gaze. Just in case. The message was clear. The maniacs were done. For now. The tool was back in its box. But the box was not locked. And everyone now knew where it was and what it could do. Kalen turned to leave. He held the book carefully. He walked back down the plain metal corridor. His guards saw him and straightened up. They saw the look on his face and said nothing. On the shuttle ride back to the hegemony ship, Kalen opened the book. He read the first line. It was simple. It was clear. War is a matter of vital importance to the state. The province of life or death. The road to survival or ruin. It is mandatory that it be thoroughly studied. He closed the book. He looked out the shuttle window at the receding human station. The disbelief was gone now. It had been replaced by a cold, clear understanding. The celestial hegemony had not been beaten by a better empire. It had been fixed by a repair crew from a world that had spent 10,000 years mastering the art of breaking things. And the scariest part was not that they had done it. The scariest part was how easy it had been for them. How routine. The galaxy had just met its new neighbors. And the neighbors, for now, were putting their tools away. But everyone would remember. The memory would be quiet and careful, and it would shape every conversation to come. The lesson was over. The new equation of fear was written. And in that equation, Earth was the one unknown variable that no one would ever dare to solve for again.